Good morning and welcome to the best of WSBA's Morning News with Gary Sutton. I've been waiting for this segment all morning. I was talking to Joe Decree off air on Saturday, and he's, of course, the retired veteran of Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. And he told me a story about, well, he'll tell you himself, the power of prayer, a miracle, or some other explanation. Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Okay, so there's a lady at one of the local churches. Her name is Amy. I won't give you her last name. She, several years ago, or a couple years ago, was diagnosed with cancer, I think phase 3, esophageal cancer.
Okay.
Things were looking pretty grim. She's a single mom of 3. Things progressed over a couple years to the point where the pastor of that church and his wife actually arranged to adopt her kids when she died.
Okay. So
she progressed from phase 3 to phase 4.
right.
And the cancer metastasized to her liver, brain, and I don't know, maybe some other places. So liver started to fail. She had a great deal of seizures, and I mean, just large grand mal seizures that would, these things would go off and on for hours at a time.
Right.
And she couldn't remember anything. She was wrecked. She was going blind. The cancer, the tumors in her brain were, pressed on the optic nerve, and she was going blind. She lost vision in her right eye. She was losing vision in her left eye. She was told 2 or 3 times that, hey, man, you're probably going to be gone within 60 days.
Right.
So about this time last year, she called her doctor. She's got doctors in 3 different places, right? Seattle, I think Dallas, and like the Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis. So she's got people on all over the country. About this time last year, the church is praying, where everybody's praying for her. Several churches are praying for her. She's got a couple thousand people praying for her, and she's a Christian. She's praying herself. About this time last year, systems start turning back on. She calls one doc and she says, "Hey, I can see out of my right eye." He's like, "No, you can't. That doesn't happen." There's not really can't. Liver starts to show signs of coming back to life. The seizures continue, but she gets to a point about, I want to say April of last year, where she is declared cancer-free.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I mean, in this time, but, 12.5 doctors have started to believe in miracles and God and Jesus. So in May, she gets more bad news, all the stress on her heart from the chemo, which was rather aggressive and extensive, and the cancer itself are causing her, to go into heart failure. So she struggles with that. She's seeing, cardiologists, more doctors.
So let me just jump in real quick. So we go from, and by the way, you said she's cancer-free. We're not talking about remission. We're talking about gone.
Right.
No sign of it.
Right. It's gone.
So now you're done with that chapter, and then you move into, okay, now the heart's been damaged. Right. And, go ahead.
So the heart's damaged. She's still having a lot of seizure activity. And it's horrible stuff.
Right.
So, the kids are, the kids aren't living with her. They're living with the pastor. They're not adopted yet, but, everybody's just kind of waiting. So, everybody goes from, God spared her the cancer so we can kill her with the heart attack. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So the church gets real, it's a good Baptist church, so they get real specific about the prayers. And the prayers are 3 specific things. 1, that Amy gets healed. 2, that they had to install a pacemaker, which was basically pacing Amy's heart. The only reason that Amy's heart was beating at extensive intervals is because she had a pacemaker. Okay. So that Amy gets healed, that the pacemaker can be removed, and just for good measure, everybody threw in and the surgical scars from the pacemaker go away. Okay? Those are the 3 specific things that this church of about 900 people is praying for, right?
All right.
So about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, cardiologist in Seattle calls Amy at 04 and says, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Well, I'm as okay as I've ever been, but not good, but not in any particular distress right now." She said, "Why?" He said, "We lost telemetry on your pacemaker." He said, "I want you to take a look at that thing." Now, for folks that don't know, when you get a pacemaker installed, there's a bump there. It's raised up about half, 3/4 of an inch. Right. He said, take a look and tell me what you see. And so she peels the bandage off, and she says, there's no bump. He said, well, feel around and see if you can feel it somewhere, see if you can, maybe it went under a rib or slipped or, okay. Look around, nothing. He said, what's the scar look like? And she says, what scar?
Wow.
So there's no pacemaker bump. There's no scar. There's no telemetry. There's no pacemaker.
Wow.
Home health nurse comes in the next day and is looking all over Amy for this thing. There is no pacemaker in this woman. Her heart is running rhythmically on its own. There is no surgical scar. The seizure activity has diminished probably by over 95%.
Wow.
She still has seizures, but they're, a few minutes, not hours. Yeah.
So where do you put this? Where do you put this? I mean, this is one of those interesting stories. I mean, first of all, cancer's wiped clean of her body. Okay, she doesn't have any sign of that anywhere, and she was at death's door.
No signs of cancer. Yep.
Heart was being kept alive, kept going by a pacemaker. Pacemaker's gone, no scar. So you're going to have people out there going to say, well, that's just great science, or it's one of those things that ever happens, or it's a coincidence, or whatever.
There's no record of a surgery to remove a pacemaker. It is gone.
Yeah,
I think when we get to heaven in the Ark of the Covenant box, it's these stone tablets, Aaron's rod, and this pacemaker.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, it's like, and I think the last I heard from the pastor, I don't know Amy personally,
right?
But the last I heard from the pastor was 18 doctors, now believe in God and miracles. Because of this incident.
Because they
and he said they've had conference calls, at these 3 locations all around the country, saying there's no explanation for any of this. This is there's no science in this. This is a miracle.
So here are men of science who go and say, okay, this is it. I mean, she's not going to make it out of this, and all of a sudden everything is gone twice, not once but twice.
Medical science cannot, it has run its course. We've done everything we can for this lady, as far as we know how to do. It hasn't worked, and she's doing fine.
Joe, that's an amazing story this morning, man. And,
I know, right?
and what more can we say? Just let people munch on that today and think about it.
Exactly.
You're listening to the best of WSBA's Morning News with Gary Sutton. We'll have more after the break.